Welcome back to another episode of Hoosier Game Day. It's another week on the show, but unfortunately, it's the same result for the Hoosiers, coming off a 38-3 loss at home to Rutgers, fumbled on the first play. The Hoosiers still one of the two teams in the country to not beat a Power 5 team. Now this week, they're looking to get a win against Minnesota and a first win against a Big Ten opponent as well, but we'll see if they'll do that here today. First, let's get to the intro. Now let's move into a different kind of football. IU men's soccer is now in the postseason, coming off the Big Ten tournament. Obviously, lost to Penn State in the championship 3-0. But let's talk a little bit about their run in the Big Ten tournament first, Jack.
Yeah, you know, 2 1-0 victories and the 3-0 loss. And the totality of things, not the greatest performance. And, you know, the funny thing for me is you go from Rutgers, Northwestern, Penn State. The level of performance was very similar in the three for me, which would surprise you based on the results that they ended up getting, especially the big, heavy loss to Penn State. So it's really tough to gauge where this team is at, to be quite honest. And so I think that for Indiana, you know, they showed their defensive presence, especially Roman Celentano's brilliance against Northwestern in that semifinal match. Rutgers, they dominated in every facet in terms of just limiting them from opportunities, versus Penn State were clinical. So I think that on the totality, they're not a national championship winning form, but not all doom and gloom after the 3-0 loss to Penn State is how I would sum that up.
Right, and overtime has obviously been something that's been a theme over the course of this season, and I know the guys are getting a little bit tired of it, but when you have moments like you do in overtime against Northwestern, it's hard to not want to go out in that fashion. But what do you think they're going to have to do moving into the tournament to make sure they get it done in the first 90?
Well, the two most recent losses against Maryland and Penn State, both away from home, so many similarities in those two matches. Creating some really good looks, dominating the first 30 minutes. Maryland dominating the entire first half, in my opinion, but just not putting your chances away. And if you fail to put your chances away, you leave the door open, and then when Maryland and Penn State scored their goals, they then would have one that would follow it up pretty soon after. And once you're down by 2 goals, this team, I don't anticipate them coming back from a 2-0 deficit. So at least in my estimation, bury your chances. Herbert Endeley, it's a fascinating one. I hear people say maybe he shouldn't play because he doesn't finish the chances, but in the same token, no one gets those chances. His speed, his dribbling combination, maybe he doesn't score them, but he's going to generate tremendous looks. If he gets hot, if he scores a few goals, especially you think about that goal against Pittsburgh in the semifinals of the entire tournament last year, if he has those moments of magic, Indiana can really turn it around. But they need to finish their chances. They create a good amount in the first 30 minutes. If they don't score one, you know, against Louisville or Bowling Green, whoever they end up playing, if they don't do that, they leave the door open. And the defense is very good, but the longer that you force them to stand tall, the longer the potential for it to go wrong is.
And you talk about putting those chances away. The shots aren't the issue. They're getting the shots. They're getting the looks on the goal. But how do you put those chances away early on?
It's a great question. You know, I'm sitting here in a media perspective. I
mean, I guess you probably it's not involving you. You're not the one trying to score, but from a media perspective, it looks like they're doing everything right, but they just can't find the back of the net.
And sometimes it's as simple as just keeping on trying again and again until you figure something out and until it goes in the back of the net. Sometimes it is just as simple as that. There isn't a cut and dry. We got to hit it with a bit more finesse, a bit more power. I think Herbert Endeley, he'll have 1 or 2 chances that he'll say, I should have done much better on that. So they'll look at the tape, they'll look at that and say, our technique needs to be better. The decision making, I think, needs to improve. This team, I think you think back to that Mayer goal, you had the pass inside the 18-yard box. This team doesn't get in the 18-yard box and pass it very often. But when you saw Wittenbrink kind of pull 3 defenders in and then play to Joey Mayer,
you knew what was happening.
He showed great presence of mind as well, and then buried it home, obviously, to win it for Indiana, which was a huge, huge win for them. I think as well as the first Penn State goal. They get the ball in the box, defender has his back to goal, he's about 8 yards away. I think if that's a Hoosier, he's trying to turn around and shoot that. Instead, he has the presence of mind, he passes it outside the box, and they take a shot. It takes a deflection, but they generated a look by getting the ball into the box and not just thinking, we're in the 18-yard box, let's shoot. Which is, it's good for the shot total, not good for the quality of shot. I think you need to just try and be a bit more patient, a bit more poised. It's very hard to do, but if they can make that switch, it's going to be a big deal for IU.
We talk so much about the quest for the 9th championship. Is this, even entering the postseason, something you think is feasible this year with the team that they have, the season that this team has had, the way they performed in the Big Ten Championship? Is it even possible to get that ninth star?
I think it's 100% possible. I think this is a team that at one point was ranked number 1 in the nation, and for justified reason. It has as much talent as anybody up and down the roster. There's no weak point in this team where a team can target it and say that's what we're going to go after, because they're so balanced, they're so versatile, so they can do it. But the thing is, they're 15 seed. There are 14 teams that had a better resume than you did, according to this committee, and for justified reason. So they need to really go from being good, not at your full potential, to reach that full potential. Don't be in a spot where your entire season you're saying, well, we are almost at our full potential, almost there, but we didn't quite get there at any point. This is the time where they really need to make that switch, push to the final gear. They can do it. And in our podcast, I predicted they will do it.
Wow.
If for a selfish perspective, that I would love to see another College Cup run.
Yes.
Last year's run was different because there was much less presence due to the pandemic. Pandemic obviously still around, but there are different protocols in place.
Right.
I would love to see another one. Back in Cary, North Carolina, the team wants it, and they have that drive. But it's just a case of, can they have the force that they had last year, and can they put those chances away? I think they can, but it's just a matter of doing it.
Yeah, is that drive going to be enough to push them through the tournament? I guess we'll have to see. And a big part of this team as well is just the relationships that they have on it. You have father-son, you have people that have known each other for years, and recently you worked on a story with Daniel Muni and Joey Mayer on their relationship, right?
Yes, it was, and those two guys, it was surprising Joey Mayer coming in as a freshman. You were wondering, well, Daniel Muni's a for sure starter at center back, who's going to go next to him? As a freshman, he walks in and hasn't walked out. I mean, the only time I think that he hasn't started a match might have been when he was sent off against Penn State, didn't play the match after that because it was illegal for him to play the next match. But we've seen these guys, and the Mayer, again, the family name, so you mentioned the relationships. It's a fascinating that they've been able to bed in so quickly. You have this redshirt senior and this sophomore, but it's a tremendous relationship back there.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at that story.
Indiana men's soccer prides itself on the strength of its recruiting across the Midwest. Surprisingly, they struck gold twice near just one golf course.
For us, it's hole 7, and then for Muni, it's like kind of right by hole 3, I want to say. And it's just walking distance, like on the cart path, right to the house.
Joey Mayer and Daniel Muni anchor Indiana's back line that boasts the most shutouts in the nation. Coincidentally, they grew up in the same neighborhood in Caseyville, Illinois. Muni has played with 2 Mayers, first the older brother Jack, who was drafted into Major League Soccer.
I've been playing with Jack, and I think these two are very similar play styles. I knew what he was going to bring. I know how much of a winner the Mayers are.
For Mayer, the strength of the duo doesn't come in similarities, but in how they contrast one another.
For Muni, just absolutely like one of the best athletes I've ever seen. And then really just kind of working off that kind of working like polar opposites, I'd say.
On this field, they compete under the same jersey with the same goals, but off of it, they become rivals in every game except for soccer.
We're very competitive, no matter what it is, so we like to compete with each other.
Yeah, after practice we do like, if it's a round of like horseshoes for soccer, we go spike ball, or we play our favorite game. It's like Catan. Pretty strategic game. We're always finding ways just like compete if it's like on trips or like anything off the field. It's a blast. It's a blast.
Their competitiveness off the field hones their skills on the field, where they begin their NCAA tournament run against Bowling Green.
Very hungry to get that 9th star, and we have a chip to get back there and prove people wrong that we can do it again.
That's why we're at Indiana. We're here to win championships.
For the Hoosier Network, I'm Jack Edwards.
Thank you so much for that, Jack. Now we're going to shift over to basketball, and basketball season is in full swing now, non-conference slate. Both the men's and women's teams off to hot starts, 3-0 each. And I'm joined here with Evan Gerike, who reports for AP on the women's team. Let's talk a little bit about Terry Morin's squad and how they've gotten off to a hot start and are now ranked 4th in the country, the highest they've ever been ranked.
Yeah, it's been impressive so far. Whenever they're on the court, they really look like they're in control, especially in those second halves. They've been a really strong second half team so far, but they are the number 4 team in the nation. They came out, had a really big win over Kentucky in their second game, the first game at home, and that really kind of propelled them into a top 4 ranking. They had some teams in front of them lose. They leapfrogged another team. Now they're just staring behind Maryland in the Big Ten, and this is a team that can really do some damage. They returned pretty much their entire team that took them to the Elite 8 last year. And so far, they've looked really good. Like, they could be a team that makes another kind of run like that this year.
Most notable win so far, even though there's only been 3 games played, is Kentucky, top 15 matchup really incredible the way they were able to not only win that game, but put Kentucky away.
Yeah, I mean, they came out, the first half, it was close. I think it got tied at 25. It was 48-46. And then Indiana just stepped on the gas. I mean, they took off. Mackenzie Holmes, career day, 29 points, best game of her career. She was just all over the place, looking really good. And they got production from everyone on the court. Allie Papper, Grace Berger, Nicole Cardano-Hillary had a really good second half. It just seemed like any time that Kentucky may have been threatening to come back, Indiana found someone else to give them another big piece of production to move them forward and really kind of put that game away.
Now, what's the next opponent for the number 4 Hoosiers here?
Well, they're coming up on Quinnipiac today. A team, they're going out to Connecticut. It should be another game where they can kind of test some things out, kind of get in the rhythm before they get into Big Ten play. That they just had Norfolk State. One of those games where they started out a little bit slow, similar to Butler in that first game. Each game they kind of started out a little bit slow, and that's something that Terry Moore has talked about is they don't want to be just a third quarter, fourth quarter team. They want to be good the entire game. So that's something they might try to work on here. I also would like to see them get their bench more involved. They just had 2 bench points against Kentucky, and I think only a few more against Norfolk State this past week. And the starting 5 is really good, but your worry is that they lose one of those pieces. Do they have someone that they can plug in? Or if they're playing all the time, they're playing 30-plus minutes all the time, can you afford to keep them that worn out once they get to Big Ten play in the end of the season? They're going to be really tired. So you really want, especially early in the season, games like this, you want to be able to take those stars out and put in someone else who can kind of fill in that production. And they have not got that yet, which is my one big concern about this team so far.
Now, speaking of the bench, I want to move over to the men's team, who has really, really deep bench. Mike Woodson has talked all season about how he wants to have 10 guys who are ready to go at all time. And their win over St. John's, a 2-point win over St. John's in the Gavitt games, he had 11 guys play, 8 of them scored, and Rob Finnessy was not one of them, which I think is really interesting. But the thing that's been most impressive about this team is the way that the underclassmen have been able to step up. And namely in that St. John's win, Jordan Geronimo and Christian Lander. We expect Tamar Bates to be someone to step up. He came in, he's a leader already. He's got the talent to be there, but Jordan Geronimo and Christian Lander are 2 guys that, last season we saw really needing to develop. And I think they did that over this last offseason, but I'm not sure if you remember in the St. John's game, the stretch where Geronimo really helped carry them when they were kind of digging themselves into a hole, 7 points there in 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I thought Geronimo was really impressive when he came out. I've been big on Geronimo since last year. I think out of the freshman class, he was the one last season I think I was most excited about. But him and Christian Lander both kind of developed a little bit more. And I think it's really important for Christian Lander, a guy who, reclassified to come into Indiana a year early and play with the Big Ten when he should have been a senior in high school, and kind of got bullied around a little bit. He wasn't, maybe as good as people thought he might be. A lot of people were saying he could be the freshman of the year in the Big Ten. Did not have that great of a season, but you see him develop a little bit more. And now he's, technically, I guess he would still be a freshman eligibility-wise.
He is,
because
he's 19, too.
So, I mean, that's really impressive that someone like that can come out and in the second year really kind of bounce back from what could have been, a bad year where he goes, okay, I'm going to transfer someone smaller. I can't handle this. But he stuck with it under Mike Woodson. He's come out, and now he's looking pretty good, especially against St. John's. Him and Jordan Geronimo really made a big impact in that game.
And we talk about everything that Christian Lander did well, too, but we need to admit that he's still got a ways to go.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
He came into the game subbed in for Xavier Johnson, who picked up 4 fouls. Wasn't who we thought we were going to see at that point. Christian Lander didn't play in the first game against Eastern Michigan. So to have him come in crunch time there when it's becoming more of a game, St. John's clawed their way back into that game. He picked up 2 fouls in the first 30 seconds and then another foul a few minutes later, and it's showing his youth there in the sense that, he's not able to keep up with his man, and then he makes a play to try to overcompensate. It's a foul and all of that, but I think that layup he had in transition following that Jordan Geronimo 3 shows the flashes of hope that we see in him and how he can grow to be a leader this year into next year and when some of these guys graduate.
Yeah, but what that also shows is a lot of trust from Mike Woodson and a young guy. I mean, like you said, he didn't play against Eastern Michigan, so he could have easily gone somewhere else. But in a tight game against a good St. John's team, he said Christian Lander is the guy right now. And like you said, he wants to be 10 deep. They played 11. That says a lot about Mike Woodson's faith in his team. And I think it's really good to kind of tell Christian Lander that you have that faith in him at this point of the season. So later on, when he's needed, he knows he's reliable. That's a really good thing to kind of put that faith into your young guys. Let them know that you trust them, that you believe they can do it. And I think that Chris and Lane are kind of, maybe not at first, but he showed Mike Woodson that you can call me again when I need it.
Right, and it's so important to have that. Obviously, they have an All-American and Trace Jackson-Davis averaging a double-double right now. Got his 1,000th career point against St. John's, but he can't carry the team by himself, and he's going to need those other 9 or 10 guys to help support him through games like St. John's. And then up next, the Hoosiers are hosting Louisiana tomorrow at Assembly Hall. Back hopefully for another really crazy environment at Assembly Hall that they had against St. John's. But again, Thanksgiving break, maybe we'll see. 7:30 p.m. tip this time. But before we can get to that game, I think it's really important that we hear from Mike Woodson himself on what the bench means to the team.
You know, our bench has got to be ready. You know, our benches is just as important as the guys that start the game. And I thought they did that against Northern Illinois, and tonight they came in and did a great job as well.
Now let's get back to the reason you guys are all here, Indiana football, and I'm joined here alongside Evan Gerike, who is the Indiana Daily student beat reporter for IU football. And Evan, I feel like every week we come on here and we talk about how disappointing this team has been and maybe the hope that they can have going forward, but 2-8 on the season, 2 games left, no chance of postseason in sight. What do you have to say about this team now and where they're at?
Yeah, it's obviously been tough. I feel like every week I've come on this show, it just gets more and more depressing. At the beginning, like, oh, it was a bad week, but they can bounce back. And now it's like, well, this season's kind of over. You know, they're not going to make a bowl game. This is going to be, even if they win out, it'll be Tom Allen's worst season as the Indiana head coach. The worst season for the Hoosiers since 2014. It's not going to be a very good year, and we know that already. So at this point, really what you're looking for is some kind of sign of life. Either against Minnesota or in the bucket game against Purdue, and obviously everyone wants to win the bucket game. You want to see something for this team that shows like we can turn it around next year. Whether that's something that Tom Allen changes in coaching, whether that's the players just having some kind of good game, whether it's Ty Freifogel getting 100 yards receiving. The main one for me is you're looking at Donovan McCulley. He is the quarterback of the future. So you're looking for the present, yeah. But obviously, like he was not expected to play this year, so you can't really whatever McCulley's performance has been this year. It's kind of hard to judge it. He's done for a true freshman playing some tough teams. He's done pretty well, but you want to see him take steps to grow, and you really saw that again in the Maryland game. That was his best game by far, where he used his legs really well. He was throwing the ball pretty well, and there was definitely growth from getting blown out against Ohio State. So you want to see another step forward from him. Whether it's being able to sit in the pocket a little bit longer, make a few more reads, and pick out some open receivers, whether it's hit some throws that he hasn't been able to hit necessarily in the last few weeks, or whether it's not fumbling a handoff on the first play of the game. Yeah. You just want something, I think, especially out of him, to say okay, he's going to figure it out. This is the guy that we're going to go to. Maybe as soon as next year. There's a chance he wins that starting job next year, and this is kind of him showing why he deserves it.
Yeah, and something I've heard people say, which is kind of funny, is that Indiana almost looks like they're playing at this point to get a better draft pick. And obviously that's simply not possible, but what is your take on that, the way that, the effort that you're seeing from the Hoosiers at this point in the season?
Yeah, I mean, it's there are so many players that are injured right now. Tom Allen said in the press conference this week, 30 players have missed time, 18 of them season-ending injuries. Those are guys that were expected to be really big role players at the beginning of the year. DJ Matthews in particular, I feel like we've kind of forgot about him a bit since that Western Kentucky game.
It was a while ago.
I thought he was gonna be the best receiver on the team this year, even kind of taking over from Freifogel. And he went down on that kind of unfortunate punt return, and haven't heard from him since, and no one's really stepped up into the role to kind of replace him. And they didn't really have any receivers that were able to do that had that kind of skill set that he had. He had a very unique skill set. I mean, we've seen Freifogel taking the punt returns, and I don't think he's returned a single one. And then this week, he muffs a punt. And it was not his job to return the punt.
So a wide receiver, I don't think, has scored a single touchdown in Big Ten play to this point.
You might be right on that, because no one scored against Rutgers, so you might be right. I'd have to check that. But
there's no one that's really stepped up, and we saw his performance against Cincinnati, which I think was, what really got Hoosiers excited about DJ Matthews, and just as they got excited
with his rushing touchdown, just as he was kind of coming around. And there's other guys too. Tywan Mullen, of course, is the big name, where he's kind of tried to play these last few weeks, and he'll come out for a drive, then won't be able to return. And I mean, he was a preseason All-American kind of guy. He's if he comes back from Indiana this year, or if he doesn't, he's gonna probably get drafted pretty high up when he goes to the draft. Not having him is really hurtful for your secondary. Noah Pierre, the guy who replaced him, has been the guy that every team has targeted. And it's usually worked out for them pretty well. I know a few games he was a leading tackler, but that's because they're going right at him every play. Reese Taylor missed a few games. You're now down to walk-on running backs. Not even going to talk about the quarterbacks, but Stephen Carr is now out. So last week, your leading rusher, Charlie Spiegel, 14 yards. You got 3 guys with 13 yards, including Jack Tuttle and Ty Freifogel, who had 1 rush for 13 yards. There's just no depth for them to kind of bring new energy from. And I think that's something that this program is trying to change around with their recruiting classes. They brought in some good new faces, good class coming in next year. So it's not hopeless for Indiana football, but there's just no one this year that they can turn to where if someone went down, someone else could step up.
Right. And this is the last home game for the Hoosiers of the season. Minnesota obviously got a really good rushing game. Do you think that they're going to be able to, 1, contain that rushing game, and 2, maybe pull out a Big Ten win?
Well, there is a chance they contain the running game. I looked to the Michigan State game where going into that one, you say if they want to beat Michigan State, you have to stop Kenneth Walker. Heisman candidate right there. He's had a fantastic season for the Spartans, and they did that. They really contained him. It was somewhere around 100 rushing yards. I can't remember if he broke that number or not. But they did a really good job of the front 7, protecting him, not allowing him to kind of break out. And they nearly knocked off Michigan State. If the offense showed up just a little bit more, if Tuttle doesn't throw that pick 6, maybe they have a win. Maybe they have a couple wins riding that momentum. Obviously, we don't know. But if they can do that to Minnesota, and I think there is a really good chance they can, they might have a chance to kind of do the same thing and force Tanner Morgan to make some throws he hasn't been able to make this year and force them to kind of do something that they haven't really been able to succeed upon. That's really the key to the games, if you can stop Minnesota's rushing game. Now, they're already on their 3rd or 4th backup running back, very similar to Indiana. Mo Ibrahim, preseason running back, first team on all Big Ten. He went down very early against Minnesota, out for the season. Then they had Trey Potts, who came in and was performing really well. He goes down. Now you're on your 3rd and 4th string running backs, and they just kind of keep churning them out of nowhere. They're all performing really well. So Indiana can't just look at them and be like, oh, that's a 3rd string. We don't have to worry about him.
Yeah, it's not like Indiana.
It's not like Indiana. But those are the guys that you got to watch out for this week. You know, you really got to kind of crash the box and try to stop those guys if you really want to get a chance to prevent Minnesota from opening up the game. And that's really the key to actually picking up that first Big Ten win.
Definitely. And at this point, people have kind of lost hope in this team. There's obviously no chance of a bowl game. And how do you think people are going to react to this Minnesota game? Do you think people are still excited about this Minnesota game? Is it something, I mean, it's the game before Thanksgiving break for students. Are people going to show up?
I don't think they will. There's definitely a little bit of ambivalence towards this program that wasn't around at the beginning of the year. There was so much excitement. I mean, it nearly sold out against Idaho. That's not something that would ever happen for Indiana football. And that stadium was packed. Cincinnati as well. It was a really good energy. I have not checked the weather forecast for this weekend yet, so that may have something to do with it. If it's a nicer game, maybe people will come out. But last week, I have my student season ticket package, mostly for the basketball games, and I was trying to see if I could sell my Rutgers ticket. And I posted something, and I had 4 people reply to me that they were also selling their tickets. So there's just not a lot of
buy-in.
Not a lot of hope for Indiana football right now. People just don't want to go to these games. They have better things to do. They can go home, go get a nice warm cooked meal on Saturday night instead of sitting in the cold.
Oh.
That would be nice.
That would be. I mean, the highlight of that Rutgers game, which we have not yet touched on, is what, Section 19? Is that the section?
Yeah, Section 19, all with their shirts off and having a great time out there. Good for them. You got to have a good time somehow. Yeah. But that really was the only highlight of the game for Indiana.
That's saying a lot there, isn't it? Without
really
saying
is.
much.
Yeah.
So I think the last thing I want to touch on, something that a lot of people talk to and like to point fingers when we're looking at, Indiana's demise, and that's Nick Sheridan. Mm-hmm. You talk a lot about how this team doesn't have the necessary pieces to really put together a good offense when you're down that bad in injuries. But how much do you think we can attribute to Nick Sheridan's play calling?
Yeah, that's the tough question. I think that's the thing that Tom Allen's really going to have to look into over the offseason. He said he wasn't going to worry about personnel changes now, and at this point it's too late in the season. You're going to ride him out. But that is going to be a big question for Indiana, is whether or not he's the guy going forward. Last year they had a good offensive season. This year not so much. But how much of that can you put on him? That's really the question. Because you're running Grant Gremmel out there. How much can you really expect a guy to do with Grant Gremmel? Michael Penix, when he was playing, did not look like himself. So is that a Michael Penix thing, or is that a Nick Sheridan thing? and that's going to be up to Tom Allen to really decipher. I think the biggest thing Indiana needs to fix is their offensive line. I don't think you can have a team that succeeds until you build a good offensive line. What Indiana might do over the offseason is go out and try to pick up some graduate transfers, similar to what they did with the defense. Ryder Anderson has been a huge impact. Weston Kramer has been really good for them. So I think they need to do something very similar on the offensive line, where they can finally kind of create some holes for the running game, protect their quarterback a little bit so he can stay in the pocket, go through his reads, his progressions, and finally find someone who's open. Those are the big things. Nick Sheridan is going to have to answer, and whether or not Tom Allen thinks that Nick Sheridan is the guy to do that or not, we're not really sure yet. If you would ask me probably around the Ohio State game, I would have said it's time for them to find someone new. Looking at it now, I could understand the argument that let's give Nick Sheridan one more year. He went through a pandemic for his first year. Now is his second year. He's been riddled with injuries on his offense. So maybe give him one more year, see what he can do, and then after that, you really have to make a full decision. So I would not be surprised to see him around for another year, but I also wouldn't be surprised to see him go.
Gotcha. Well, before we get to our predictions, we need to take a look at one of the more fun parts of last week's Rutgers game, and that's the tailgating fields. Griffin Gonzalez has us with Tailgate Talks now.
Oh, hey, didn't see you there. Hey, what's up? We're here at University of Michigan getting ready for what is going to be another amazing game day. We're expecting 100,000 people here today. People are already lining up. We still got hours till kickoff, which means people are partying, which means people are tailgating, which means we got to go catch up with them, see how they're feeling on this game day. Let's go check it out. All right, so what's interesting about Michigan is there's a high school adjacent to the stadium. So everyone you see tailgating today is tailgating in a high school field. That's lit. Love that. I peaked in high school, so this is awesome. I'm sorry, that sounded like a school I heard in Ohio. I said, are we having a good Michigan game day? That's what I like. Okay, tell me, what is this? What's going on here?
We're going Cajun deep fried turkey, onions in the cavity. We got ribeyes, we got shish kebabs. We've got kefta, like a ground lamb. What else we got going on here?
You name it, we got it.
We got pizza.
You name it, we got it.
We're rolling 40 deep today for the tailgate.
I gotta ask, guys. I've never had a deep fried turkey. I've heard the hype. Is it worth the hype?
You tell us. We're gonna cut you a piece right now.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I want to try. I want to see it. What?
Yeah, baby.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Now, for those of you listening, the smell alone is absolutely killer. I'm going to go full Galen mode here. Okay, the smell, beautiful. Look at the drip. Wow.
We did a honey hot sauce that we dripped on it.
Now, how long were you working on this?
Oh, well, it started last night.
Okay.
And then we marinated it, dry rubbed it.
Oh my God! Look at that. Woo. I'm a big turkey guy, so this is big. Are we ready for the first? Are we ready for a taste? Hold on. You gotta take one with me.
Honey hot sauce.
Tip it. Honey hot sauce. Oh wow. Look at that. All right, here we go. One bite. Everyone knows the rules.
Keep the soup clean.
How'd we do?
Yeah, baby.
Go Blue.
Go Blue. They know how to have a good tailgate here. This is the best turkey I've ever put in my mouth.
Michigan's gonna win tonight. You just watch.
You sound really confident with that.
So confident. I wasn't confident last weekend and I screwed us. Go Hoosiers, baby! No, go Blue.
It'll still be a good game.
Just like to point out, I'm throwing a football while holding a microphone. Put me in at second behind Donovan today. Maybe tie fry. Ooh, I'm feeling good. All right, so I've seen a lot of tailgates across the country.
Yes.
I've never seen a blanket with faces on it. Tell me about it.
So, each blanket is 5 years of our history. We're in our 11th year. So, first 5 years, second 5 years. And if you look, my son doesn't even have a beard there. So, both of our kids graduated from Michigan. We are paid alumni by default. We love the maize and blue, and we are here every game.
Every game.
Every game. We don't miss it. We get the full setup. We don't even go in anymore. We watch it right on the TV here, and we just love the people. We love the atmosphere, and we would have nothing else.
All right, we're here with Daryl. Daryl, I want to start. We got a lot of things to talk about. We got to talk about this bus, though. Talk to me about how this bus came to be.
Okay, there's 10 great Michigan fans that we all collaborated on for a long time. And we said, we got to do something different. We got to make this thing special. And it's you know, you go back here, there's all 10 of us on the thing. There's 7 of us, but it expanded to 10. And you know what? We bring it here every single week. We got the same spot. We have the best tailgate fans right next to us. They have a bus too. This is Wolverine 1, ours is Wolverine 2. Okay?
And you got full wrap on it.
Full wrap. Wow. Full wrap. You know, come to the back.
We'll come see it. We'll come see it.
Straight out of the big house. Because we're straight out of the big house. Now, every single week, we play even better than the team does. Win or lose, we roll out of here, we're winners.
Because I've heard from just roaming around that it's the people that make a Michigan tailgate so special. So I take it that's
right,
true.
That's right. We got the best people. We got people from Toledo. We got people from all over. We got people from Nebraska.
Hey, this is Tailgate Talks in Ann Arbor. This is my new best friend, Daryl. There's nothing better than this. For Griffin Gonzalez, this has been Tailgate Talks. We'll see you next week.
Go Blue, baby!
Thank you so much, Griffin. And now, what we used to call the big part of the show, I'm not sure if it's as exciting anymore when the result seems to be the same. But, Evan, do you have a prediction for this game?
Not a good one. Not one that Indiana fans really want to hear. Like I said, I think if they shut down their running game, there is a chance that something can happen. But I mean, I've watched this team so many times now, and I still don't have any faith in the offense. And that's really what it's going to come down to if they can score at all. So I'm going to say that Minnesota is going to end up winning this game. I don't think it's going to be a pretty one. I think it's going to be a classic Big Ten game. I'm going to go 31-17 final score.
Gotcha. I have to go with the same thing. I think it's going to be an ugly one. Indiana doesn't come out on top, though. Minnesota will get this one, and like you said, it's going to be because of the running game. I'm kind of flabbergasted when I'm trying to pick numbers here. And do they score a touchdown? And if they do, is it offensive? That's what I'm trying to think of right now. But I think I'm going to go 21-6. A little bit more low scoring.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of turnovers. A lot of mess.
Just like last week, 6 turnovers. We didn't touch on that at all.
6 turnovers
for the offense and none for the defense.
First drive, too.
Yeah, I mean, there's really just no. Rutgers didn't have to go anywhere on offense. They didn't have a ton of scoring plays. They punted more than Indiana, but they got the ball so many times they didn't really have to worry about it. They were so close to the end zone. So that would be another key if you had to ask me, is not turn the ball over 6 times and maybe kind of force a few on defense. The defense was so good at that last year, and they just have not done that at all this year.
So the bar is pretty low. We have to get less than 6 turnovers this week. Indiana has to get, right? Okay. Well, thank you so much, Evan, for being here with us today. Now let's get to game time.